What's up, Union Arena players? This is Kyle D, better known as Universities, and today we have another video to talk about. Again, this is our meta. Should be week number 3 of One Punch Man, so we're gonna have at least 8 weeks of One Punch Man before Sword Art Online comes out, and then Sword Art Online only lasts for 3 weeks, and then boom, we get 2 more sets, and then it's only a week, like 4 weeks for the double set. So we got a lot of meta coming through. So without further ado, let's dive in the video and talk about it. So guys, you know how I operate, right? We are gonna go, if you use this hashtag right here on any social media platform, I can find your list by date, everything like that, so you guys can reach me in a better way, because I want to make sure I get your lists to show up, get a good understanding. And again, this is all stuff that helps support the community, because again, if you make it easier for them to find, they can find and adapt their lists and be able to get this understanding greater, I think. So being able to have a universal Union Arena tops really does help out in the long term. So hopefully you guys use this more often than not. Hopefully eventually this will be a universal keyword that we can use all together. So again, there's other places you can post. If you guys do top in a major event, look up this on Facebook. Just dump them here, because that'll help us. Again, I'm not using anything from Rare Battles, because Rare Battles will skew the data completely, because again, they are locked within their own game design. So, you know, I'm not going to be able to comfortably tell you this is affecting the meta, because these are restricted. So we're going to have a full month of One Punch Man being able to breathe without Rare Battles, so we'll be able to see exactly where it's falling, which will be really nice. But also another way of doing it, if you have local tournaments and stuff like that, using Rumble Rama's, well, using EX Burst, be able to submit your tournaments here helps out a lot. This is able to figure out what major events and everything like that. Players can find out week to week what is topping through local scenes and everything like that. So it's super important. And then if you guys want a good online event to start playing in, check out Rumble Rama on Best Coast Pairings. This will allow you to play online events. I know we want to support the local scenes, but sometimes you can't get out there. So I want to make sure players have an option for this. This is a great way of just having universal support, right? Because I want players to have fun, and online events, we get at least 10 to 11 players at given time. So we always fire. There's always 3 rounds. It's pretty quick, only an hour and a half of your time at night. And boom, you get some great prizing at the end of the month. You have a shot. The top 3 are coveted. Guess what? You get a shot at 3 full boxes of a set. So that's something to think about, right? But let's take a look at what's going on in the meta. So Union Arena English winner decks tier lists. So right now, if you take a look, these are our current standings. It looks like Blue JJK finally breaking the mold and finally pushing ahead after so many weeks of, you know, people have probably put the deck down, but it looks like Sukuna list with the shrine is starting to pop back up. I think when it was split between Kento and the Sukunas, I think Kento was pulling ahead before, and I think that was because a meta was more beneficial for Kento. But now with more of these interesting decks that are just applying more pressure than Kento can handle. And what do I mean by that? Kento plays a little bit slower, and with that leading into it, Kento playing slower leads into these other decks that can just play into that slow motif, right? One Punch Man takes advantage of that slower game plan because they have time to set up their wall and push through, right? You know, Garu needs 15 cards in trash while you're trying to get to 15 cards in deck. Garu will beat you every single time, even if you're trying your best with Kento, because you don't have ways of getting your trash filled up. I mean, yes, some players actually have done well with Kento and able to top with Kento, that they've, you know, sped it up by using options that will help them draw more and trash more. So yeah, you can do that, but you have to play the deck faster just to compete with a lot of these decks. Even Metal Bat popping up now is really showing some interesting feats, because originally Metal Bat wasn't on everybody's radar, but I think Metal Bat is pretty good on top of all things said and done. The one thing I found was Speedo Sound Sonic hasn't topped this week, but that could be just someone didn't post the results. But I think definitely Speedo Sound is still floating about somewhere in here. But, you know, Purple Code still doing extremely well into the format. I think right now the big two are still the big two, you know, Blue JJK and then Purple Code. And then you have Garu falling up shortly behind it, which is not surprising actually, because Garu is a very powerful deck. So, yeah. Now, we do have the Sukuna list here. This is more or less what you kind of expect, right? You know, 2 domain, you know, the shrines, the 4 domains, 4 fingers, 4 divergent fists, you know, for this Yuji Itadori, the 2 AP for this Yuji Itadori, you know, all in all, great list across the board, right? There's nothing too out of the ordinary that I can see, but yeah. Now, you do have Kento doing some Kanto nominee shenanigans. Again, this card is the one card I'm always on the fence of, right? You know, being able to, when played, you may place 7 cards from your sideline into the removal area. If you do, draw 3 cards. Makes a lot of sense, right? You know, being able to dig your deck, which you need to do. And some players are hit or miss on what they want to do with the list. I think what majorly comes down to is being able to keep your aggression going and just keeping tempo. And again, you don't mind if you remove 2 fingers, because fingers aren't as vitally a necessity for this deck, right? So then we have Purple Code being Purple Code. You know, people are playing Ogi here. Ogi being that double energy generator allows you to continue to play out your deck how you want to play it. You know, a lot of players cut this solution out, but being able to do that double energy generation really does help out. This one being able to minus 1000 DP, and then being able to be, you know, the Gurins being able to pop things, all just add up to being a very powerful deck as always. So something like this always has to be in the format, and I feel like we're always going to see it. Even with consistency wise, you're just going to see the raids just being the raids. Now, again, here's another one that we kind of come to. Purple Code is always going to be one of those decks in the format that is just super strong and consistent. Now, we do have One Punch Man leading the way. One Punch Man is hit or miss. I like that they do play the option, because you can use Hellish Blizzard to get it back. And again, players are using it to loop this a little bit, or loop their heroes to kind of just speed up the Saitama, getting them out, because again, these 2 action points is a little costly. But if you don't mind discarding 2 just to get your extender back, you know, that does lead into some great value. Now, again, we do have Lancelot doing Lancelot shenanigans. Lancelot is always a very solid deck across the board. It's either hit or miss on what they're trying to do. Either they play the Siegfried, because they do play the Jeremiahs, just so that it has a raid target, and being able to get one of your pieces back from trash, you know, does help out, especially if your opponents answer the Lancelots, and then you just have to worry about the Varus and stuff. So stuff like that, it plays pivotal into the strategies, right? Now, we do got Kurapika, which, again, it's like one of those rogue decks that kind of just pop in and out of the meta, right? There's never really a bad time for Kurapika to kind of just go like, hey, I'm here, guys, answer me, deal with me, you know? I think Kurapika is still a very solid deck across the board, using Leorio and, you know, Neon and Hisoka are really powerful still. You know, Hisoka being able to force blocks means that they're losing out on a body, even though you're not causing any impact damage. Being able to control the board in a way that forces your opponents, you know, 4Ks to force block is always a problem, and that is always something you have to be ready for. But, and then we're getting Ichigo decks again. So Ichigo comes in and out of the format however it likes, right? You know, you do have the Department of Research, you do have the Renjis, This Renji is hit or miss if you see it in the list. But again, we have to take into the account that eventually a lot of these purple Bleach decks come in and out of the format. But when we get to volume 2, we're going to definitely see an uptick on purple Bleach. And blue Bleach is going to be the next other deck behind it. I think they're great values across the board. And I think we're going to see a ton of new Bleach decks. And I expect Bleach to start pulling ahead again. And that's just commonplace, right? So, and at least with purple, you have 2 variants that you can play with. You have the Squad Zero variant, and then you have the normal variant, which is just Ichigo and friends. So it's going to be very interesting how everything pans out, but I really do expect a lot of changes in the coming weeks. You know what? Again, definitely check out Rumble Rama. Definitely check it out on Best Coast Pairings. There's plenty of events. We're going to start April soon, and then we're going to have some fun surprises across the board. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you next one. Peace.